So this is how I go about constructing IKEA furniture, and I hope it's of some interest to you. So first of all, this little unit is a Hemnnes or Hemnnes. So basically the tools for this job, my old work hammer, I've got a PZ2 screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver, and they should do nicely. I've got all the component parts here which I've taken out of the box. Let's take a little look at the bits and pieces that you get, the fittings if you like, that you get with this particular item. So I'm going to snip them open with a pair of scissors. So I always set myself up. I've got my tools, I've got all the component parts set out, and then I take a little look at the instructions. And these are very straightforward. I see that 4 of these screws here go in these holes, quite straightforward. And so I'm going to put those in as instructed, just showing you there's 3 holes there, and you're going to locate it over the center hole. So now just taking a look for our component parts, we're told that we need 4 of these little screws, and then I'm going to start fixing them into the holes. So you can do this any way you like, but I find that the way that is quite easy is if you put the screw in the end of the screwdriver and hold it with your finger, hold the item here so it's still, and then pop this down into the hole, putting some pressure on, holding the runner like that, just turning it into place. You can feel it going in straight away, and then just running this slider down the other way, repeating the same, popping it into the end of the screw, putting it into the hole, no drama, and then just turning it with this handheld PZ screwdriver. Now I have done it with cordless drills and put a very gentle clutch on them, but I feel that if you're not so familiar with a cordless drill and how to use it really gently, I would really suggest using a handheld screwdriver, because you can really feel the connection with your screw. So now just going back to this, I've got my thumb and 2 fingers on this to feel the pressure and how far to turn it. If you turn this too much and too hard, it starts to spin in the hole, and you draw up bits of wood from the hole, and it starts to spin round and lose its grip. And then after a few years, perhaps you'll find it starts to wobble or even come out. So the great thing here is not to over tighten. And then same with this other end, tighten this in, just feeling for the tightness. Nice and tight, but not too tight, and never making it revolve in the hole once it's grounded. So then, same again with this one. On this one, we follow the arrow in the direction as requested, looking at the diagram with a little hole here and the arrow here. And on this one, it's the other way around with the arrow here and the hole here. So then just getting this out, finding the middle hole here, popping it over there, popping the screw on the end of the screwdriver, putting it over the hole, and again putting it it in, but not all the way tight. And just locating this hole here. And same again. They go in quite easily, and you do need a screwdriver that is a good fit. Tightening that one up, and now tightening this one up. So that's that procedure done. Next, it tells us to put 8 of these in the various holes as shown. So let's locate 8 of these. Some people count these component parts. I don't ever do that because, as far as I understand it, they weigh each box to make sure that all the component parts are in. I don't think I've ever come across a situation where there's a component part missing. So first of all, let's pop these in. 2 ways of doing this. You can either put it in by hand and then screw it in. You can feel it biting and it goes in quite easily. Again, don't over tighten this because I found that if you do, it starts to pull the wood material out, and this wood is actually quite soft, and then you've oversized and spoilt the hole. So just go in gently and just tighten it with 2 fingers. Another way of doing it is just like this, hover it over the hole, and then tighten it in. So that's 2 of them done. Let's do the other 2. Just in tight enough, but not too tight. And let's put this one in first by hand. And there we are. That's that one done. Now on to this one. And that is that operation done. So on to the next part, which IKEA is asking us to find 3 dowels. As you can see, this is a wooden dowel, so I'm going to find 3 of these. And then I'm going to find the component parts, which, as you can see by this little diagram here, it's something here with 2 little holes there, nothing on this side. So it asked me to put 2 dowels in here. Looks like 1 this side, 1 that side. And when you turn it round, you have the 2 little holes, like so. So first things first, let's pop the 2 dowels in. And for this, I'm going to need a hammer. And pop these dowels in, push them in as far as they'll go, and then I'm going to tap them in with a hammer. And listen for the sound it makes when these dowels tap home properly. You can hear the sound change, and that's when you know it's driven right home. And that one is in. And so that's this component part. The next component part is this item here. Very straightforward. 2 holes. We have 1 dowel going into 1 hole, and this is going to locate onto this peg where it's going to lock in here. And this is what I find works best for me anyway, is that I always like to orient the piece that I'm working on so it looks the same as the drawing. So I actually find that IKEA furniture is really satisfying to put together actually. Not really the scary thing it's built to be. So let's see how these go together. So we locate this peg here into this hole, and then the 2 dowels just go into the holes. So I like to make sure that I push from above, putting all my weight onto it. You can, in fact, if you want to, give it a gentle tap with a hammer, but just making sure that there's no gap here. So we're going to see how this looks in the diagram, which is 2 holes facing to the right. So again, putting the dowel in, you can hear when it changes tone. So locating it like so. We're going to be pressing it 2 hands down, and you can see there's no gap there, and that's exactly what we want. So now we are told to put in these little devices here, which go into that hole, locate onto the peg, turn it and lock it into place. So let's find those. We are asked here to find 2 of them. You can see the shape here. One end is cut out and goes over the peg here. So let's pop that in and use our PZ2 screwdriver. And if it won't quite go in properly, just press it back with the screwdriver and turn it. You can see here, what are we doing? About 1/4 of a turn. You can just feel it locking as it just turns that last piece, and that is really solid. And again, looking out for that cutout, going downwards, pop it in, press it right home firmly that direction with a screwdriver and turn it clockwise to lock it. And you can just feel it biting and locking there at that last bit of the process. Right, on to the next part. And here we're asked to put this base section in. Very easy to identify. It also shows that the holes are facing down as they were on this part here. So when you look from the top, it looks, you don't look at the holes. We're locating this hole and that hole onto these 2 pegs. Very easily done. And if it doesn't go on straight away, just wobble it around until it does go on. And now we're going to do the second part of the operation, which calls for putting the dowels in and then popping this second piece on. 1, 2, and 3. And let's tap them home in the same way that we did before, so you can hear the sound that you want to hear. And now, quite simply, this peg here goes into that hole, this peg goes into that hole, this into this, and that into that. And this is where, so I've located that to start. You've got to start somewhere and pop this in. And can you see if it's not, if it's on the lip there, just ease that over. Manipulate this so that the holes are in the right place. Pull the legs apart little bits if necessary, which I'm going to have to do there. And then just start to tap it down. You can hear it actually. You can hear that noise, tells you it's gone down into the right place. And so just check for gaps. There's no gap here or here. And the same here. Everything's gone down nicely. So now to put in these little metal securing pieces. I need 4 of these, and remembering to put them in the right way round. So that's 1. Pressing it home, that one goes this way. And what I found is that IKEA furniture has got common components, of which these are one, these little turny locking metal things to go on these posts. Dowels are another common one. These little feet that you hammer home, which we're going to be using shortly, is another one. Screws to locate things, and there are other parts, but this I suppose is actually showing how to use these common parts. So let's just turn this until tight. Same with that one, just twisted around nicely to lock it. Locking that one in place. And finally this one. Now we have one more to do here. Let's pop that in. Having to do this left-handed to get the screwdriver in, and that is that completed. Now we're being asked to hammer these little stud feet home with a hammer. And very easily we'll just start them off one by one by pressing them slightly into the holes. And then each one can be, again you can hear that noise when they've actually hammered home. And now the last bit is to put the top on. And we are being asked to find 2 dowels. And quite important to get these dowels in properly. Down to the bottom of the holes, so that the top fits nice and flat. The next step is to put this top on and then lock the top into place, and this is quite easily done by locating these 2 in the back here and then just looking to see whether these other 2 fall in. They quite easily drop in, and then just giving it a bit of a thump so you can hear it's gone down nice and flat. Making sure that you've got no gaps and that the top has gone down nice and tight to the base. So again, the little slot at the bottom for this one. Same for this one. So I have to go through this gap here because these are quite low down in the back piece. Let's tighten that one. Just using that little bit of pressure to make sure that they are locked. And one more piece here, which pops in like that. And there. It's not quite the right way around, so let's get a screwdriver. Turn it until it pops in. And now we lock it into place. And one metal fixing piece goes in here. And locked nicely in place. Locking metal piece goes in here. And that is locked. So you can see now, we just need to make the drawer that goes in here on these drawer runners. So let's see what we're being asked to do. So we want to locate this component here. So let's find two of these posts and screw them in. Sometimes when you screw them in, they look to be at an angle, which they actually are until you screw the last couple of turns and they straighten up as the bottom of this little post here grounds onto this surface and it pulls it straight. Now we go to the next bit, which is we're looking for something looking like this, which to my way of thinking is this. Has a groove in it. So let's look at what we have to do here. Finding this piece with a hole that corresponds to that there. Two little holes correspond to these. We're going to locate it onto that peg or that post, and a dowel goes in here. So let's pop the dowel in and let's hammer it home. That's the noise we want to hear. So let's locate this hole onto the post and line up the dowel with the hole and then press it home hard. And if necessary, a little tap with a hammer just to make sure there's no gap here. So let's pop a dowel in, hammer it home, locate this hole onto that post. Just manipulate it and wiggle it until you can see that the dowel is going nicely into the hole. You can see without even tapping that, that's gone in nicely. So now we just pop these two locking metal pieces in. Here's the first one with a cutout at the bottom. And here is the second one. Cut out at the bottom. Locked into place. finally we're asked to put this base piece in, and you can see that that only goes in one way round because it doesn't fit like this. So let's pop it in this slot, as you can see here, in one side. Goes in quite easily. Make sure it drops into this slot, and you've heard it go in. And then finally we're asked to put this section so that it corresponds the groove with the top of this, and then we're asked to screw it in with 4 screws. So first of all, let's turn this round in such a way that that goes on there. Just pull this apart slightly to make it go in. We're asked to use 4 wood screws, and let's put 3 on the carpet. So what we do is put them in the hole and have to press slightly to get them going. And if they don't get going, you can just hit the top of the screwdriver like this, and it just makes the screw start a little bit better. Now again, not driving this home too far, just feeling it biting nicely. Let's grip this piece here, now lining this up, popping the screw in. Pressing hard just to get it going. Screwing it in, and when it starts to bite, just enough so that you don't ruin the hole it's going into. So then next, these 2 last screws. It's a very simple little unit, this, so there's not much to it at all. And as I say, this is just really not so much about how to make this particular unit. It's just some of the principles involved that I've learned over the years on how best to, that's turning a bit, so let's press it harder to get it going. Just some of the things that I've learned how to assemble IKEA furniture so that it really lasts in a way so it's not too confusing and stressful to put this furniture together. So here is the completed drawer unit, and now we're asked to pull these 2 drawer runners out and then slide this drawer onto the drawer runners. So let's see how we do that. So there's a groove here, if you like, or a channel, both sides, and each runner goes into this channel, and then we're going to fix a screw through to fix it, to stop the drawer actually coming out. Just push it slightly to make the drawer now go onto here, and we are asked to put a screw through there, which is through here and into the runner beyond, which is these 2. So now it's a question of lining up this hole with that hole, on this side, popping the screw through. I'm going to screw it in. We are asked finally to put this knob on here, securing it with a screw. This goes through from the inside of the drawer, like so. And now, having located this little knob, I'm going to cut the pack, remove the knob, just locate it onto the screw thread, and then turn this until it's really tight and secured. You may have to, over the years, just tighten this up, but it's not a problem. As I say, you may need to hold the screw at the back with a screwdriver. So there we are. This is how I personally put together IKEA furniture, and although this is only one small piece of furniture, I think there's a few ideas which I'm just sharing with you there, which hopefully will help you when you're building your own IKEA furniture. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.